All right, good morning. We're going to go today over a new cold call slide. We've gone over this a few times, but I got this from a commercial real estate brokerage consulting firm that specializes solely in commercial real estate. So this data was really good because cold calls obviously are different from who makes them, who you're calling, what it's for. So this again is from the Massimo Group. They're a consulting group out of Orlando. But anyway, this data that we're going to go over is analyzed from over 90,000 outbound connected cold calls. It's pretty wild with artificial intelligence and uncovered patterns and trends. So, and what we'll go over is the opening statements that they used or what worked better, which is very beneficial because you're typically going to have like 4 seconds to not have them hang up on you. So we will get into it. So how have you been? This is the first, hold on here, let me get this. Okay. This is the first opening line, right? After you say who you are, right? Hey, this is Jason from JV Capital. How have you been? Right? It says right here. So what's the best cold call opener? How have you been? We know it's a little awkward to say to someone you've never spoken with, but it has a 6.6 higher success rate than the baseline, which is a difference worthy of your attention, obviously. It's a little different. It interrupts patterns, which makes people pay attention, right? Because if you think of when you get cold calls and you hear other callers in the background, or even if it's just dead silent, and then they start, "Hi, is this Mr. whoever?" It just sounds so scripted, and you just already know. You already know it's a cold call sales person. You want to hang up. You're not even you're in that locked mind of you don't even want to hear the rest of what they have to say because you're already thinking of how you're going to get off if you don't hang up on them. So it interrupts those patterns. I mean, just think about it. Someone calls you, "Hey, Tom, this is Jason. How have you been?" That your first thought isn't, "Oh, this is a cold call," or "How am I going to hang up on this guy?" It's, "How have I been?" So has he talked to me before, right? Do I know this guy? How have I been? Like, have you been basically makes it seem that you've had some sort of conversation in the past, or you know them, or some dialogue has been formed in the past that gets you to say, "How have you been?" Right? So it already messes that pattern. That's what they're talking about, patterns. It just throws them off into a different mindset. So the second best step after you say, "How have you been?" and you might get, "Well, who's this? Hey, how who's this again?" Then you can go back over it. "Hey, this is Jason, JB Capital Solutions, and the reason for the call." Or you can just ignore it and just say, "Yeah, hey, the reason for the call," and just go right into it. After that polite opener, the next thing out of your mouth should be some version of that, right? "John Bars, the reason for my call is blank." By doing that, you increase your success rate by almost 2.5 times, 2.1 times when you start with the proactive reasoning for reaching out. People crave knowing why something's happening, even if it's a weak reason. So tell them why you're calling after you've rehearsed this over and over. So again, when you say that too, the reason for the call, it perks their ear. They lean in and they actually give you a few seconds because they want to know. It might be important, it might not be, but you've already made yourself a little different by not sounding like a scripted salesman, right? So the reason for my call, okay, it gives you almost a 2.5 times more success rate. So the whole point of this is to sell the meeting. It's not It's not just to go on and on and on and give your complete value proposition. Yes, you want to give something valuable to keep them on the phone, to at least have them hear you out, but don't be afraid to go on a longer monologue than normal. Sell the meeting. Don't do a discovery, right? If you have your interest generators or hooks, if you want to call them that, but don't do a deep discovery, right? Don't just get into an interrogation. That's what you want to do at the meeting. So this is strictly to sell the meeting. Prospecting calls are not about the discovery. They're about selling your value to pique their interest enough for a meeting, right? So again, give them something valuable. If you know what you're talking about, you're already going to come off different than someone just randomly cold calling. Hey, are you looking to sell? Hey, we want to buy your property, all cash, quick. Everybody says that all day long. They don't want to hear that anymore. They want to hear something different. So pique their interest and then get the meeting to further explain, right? If you're interesting enough and they can see some sort of value, they'll meet with you. They'll meet with you. So if it means you have to talk for longer bursts of time, that's fine. That's okay. You can get away with pitches for up to 37 seconds. So, and that means basically your pitch, your interest generator for 37 seconds to try to pique that interest. And then the next slide, we'll talk about the length. I had been taught a couple different things. This makes more sense to me on the length of time, because the longer you talk, that means clearly you've gained their interest. You've probably got them talking now. And the longer you talk, the longer the rapport. And again, as long as you're not doing a straight discovery, which is questions you're asking, then the more chance you have of having a meeting. Because now they're like, oh, hey, this is a good conversation. Yeah, sure, we can meet over a cup of coffee, just talk for a few minutes more in person. Right? So it's okay to talk more. I've been told in the past, 2 minutes, because you got to get to the next call, right? But when you're just trying to make as many cold calls, sometimes that's not the best way to just spray and pray, right? I say, just the shotgun approach, is another term. But if you laser in and you know what you're talking about, and you have a lengthy conversation, it's going to go a lot further. So you'll hold your prospect's attention by making sure you have something worth saying. This is a one time in the sales process when you can talk more than you listen. In fact, an ideal talk to listen ratio is almost the opposite of what you want on a discovery call, right? So here's successful cold calls talking. And when you're at the meeting, you want to do the exact opposite. So we're not going over the meeting today, but the best skill you can have is to listen. A lot of salespeople get so chatty. I'm guilty. Just talk. A lot of people, they just shut down. They don't care. They want to hear about themselves. They want to talk about themselves. So as a salesperson, a lot of times we get caught off in talking. But the best skill you can have is to listen, right? Just ask the direct questions and get that information and listen. That's how you're going to be successful. But on the initial cold call, this is the one time, and this was the statistics, was over the cold call data, 55% was talking. So 5%, you're over half the time on that call, you should be talking, right? Pique their interest. And then the unsuccessful calls, they were doing less talking. Then, so that's just some new data that you might have not heard or thought. But again, the meeting, you always want to listen. You want to ask the calls. You don't want to you want to control the meeting, but that just because you control a meeting doesn't mean you're talking the most. It's actually the opposite. So if you ask the right questions and you get the other party talking, that's how you control it. You ask the questions, you direct the meeting, right? How did you get into this property? How did you get into this property, right? Well, then that's 2 seconds. They start talking. Now you controlled it. Oh, great. Well, what was your intentions? How did you get into it? Then what were your intentions? What are your expectations? So now you're controlling it by just little questions, and then they're talking. So again, that's the meeting. We're just going over the cold call. So keep them on the phone. Here it is. The longer the call, the better. Okay, so your job at this stage is to keep the prospect on the phone for 5 minutes. If you can hold their attention, you're twice as likely to book a meeting as someone who can only keep them on a call for a couple minutes, right? 3 minutes was the data in this. So cold calls with no follow-up, cold calls with follow-up, 5.5 minutes, you're more than likely, right? So that was it. I mean, that's the short, just condensed version of the cold call, right? A lot of data. Again, 90,380 outbound connected calls, and this was used with artificial intelligence again that analyzed these, what was said, how long, the opening line, the second best line. So that's it. I mean, that is the steps. We'll go over the full steps. I did another training in the 10 steps, right? The intro, your opening statement, your power statement, your interest generator, right? The permission. So there's a lot of other steps to it, but this is just how to get in that. We'll go over the other interest generators, but again, the first opening line, hey, this is Jason over at JP Capital Solutions. How have you been? Oh, hey, who is this? Sorry. Yeah, hey, John, the reason for the call is boom. I'm sorry, who is it? Oh, this is Jason at JP Capital Solutions. The reason for the call is we own some property down the road. Just wanted to introduce ourselves. Oh, have we talked in the past? Because they don't know, they talk to so many people. So at least you're on the phone. Oh, you know what? We may have connected a while ago, but just want to follow back up with you. We actually haven't met in person. A lot of great things happen in the neighborhood. I was hoping maybe we could get together, put a face to the name. I mean, that's just a straight for the throat meeting, but that's just kind of the opening lines. But hope that helped. There was some new data, so I thought I'd share. You can grab the cold call scripts, the steps of the cold call in the portal there. So we'll go over the 10 steps here on the next call.